Hello everyone. Now that the rear brakes are done, it's time to tackle the front brakes on the old 86 Ford Ranger 4x4. They seem like they're frozen up. The locking hub dropped right off. There's nothing to hold them in place without a wheel bolted on.
In order to replace this brake hose that goes to the front caliper here, I have to remove that banjo fitting, and that's the banjo bolt that holds it in place. So there's a bolt back here that holds a little clamp that holds this tube tightly to the back of the caliper. It's a 5/16 head on that bolt, and it looks like it's coming right out. It's not stuck. That's the good news. Everything over here is covered with old oil and grease, so might be why things aren't stuck. Aren't too stuck. There it is. I'll throw it in that pan for safekeeping. All right, this bleeder is bigger than this 5/16. So it turns out it's 3/8 of an inch. This might be stuck. Yep. So I'll try a 3/8 inch drive, 3/8 socket on a 3/8 breaker bar. That thing is stuck. Pull it a little tighter, then a little looser, a little tighter, a little looser. I think all I'm going to succeed in there is breaking it off, so I don't need it off, so I'm going to leave it. Yeah, it's 9/16. And nice, it just comes right off. And I'll just let that drip for a bit into the pan before I pull it out completely. I might as well open the lid or remove the lid on the master cylinder reservoir just to let some air into the system, and this will drip out faster. Not dripping too fast, but fast enough. Well, if we want proof that this caliper is locked up or frozen up, I can barely turn this disc. That's definitely the problem. So I can't really call this a cold chisel. It's got a blunt end that's almost a 1/4 inch wide, flat. But I think that'll work good for punching this pin in. They've got these rubber filled sleeves. It's actually two formed pieces of metal with a piece of rubber between them, and they are what jam in between the caliper and the caliper bracket and hold the caliper in place. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. And I think, yep, there's just one way to remove them. And that actually wasn't so bad to get it started. Now I'm going to need a punch. Let's see if I can knock it out the rest of the way with a punch. And it's definitely moving. There it is. I might look and see if I can get some new ones for this.
They actually came with the new calipers.
Now I've got to knock that bottom one out. Funny how it's always on the wrong side for recording. I've got to do it left-handed or crossed up. I've never done them on a Ranger before, but I've done them on an F-150, or yeah, my old F-150. Not the one I currently have. Actually, yeah, I did the brakes on the one I currently have as well. So there it is. They pop right out pretty easy. That's cool. So I wrap this up with a bungee just to hold it above the pan. It's going to keep dripping. Let's see how hard this is to get this caliper to move off the disc. It's moving. So let's see now. Oh yeah. That caliper was just frozen. That's why the truck had a hard time moving. Got a lot of cleaning up to do here. Well, that seal needs to be replaced for sure. Oh, left the brake back here, brake pad. Now these pads were like new, look how thick they are. That's crazy. And this anti-squeal piece on it shifted out of position. This is going to be an adventure. There's this C-clip around it that so far I'm only succeeding in spinning it. But now that I have it turned up, I might be able to get on it from two sides. Okay, so I used the vice grip to hold one end, and I got this punch in there. It was able to get right in there and get a good hold on the other end of that clip, and it knocked it right out. No problem. I'll have to record it when I do the other side, just so you can see it.
I didn't record this part on the passenger side, so here it is on the driver's side.
So the trick is to stop it from rotating when you hit it. And I found I could do that by gently clamping a vice grip on here. And you don't want to squeeze real hard on those splines, you don't want to damage them. But put it right here in a position so that it will block that C-clip from rotating. Maybe I can even, yeah, no, it's a little bit tricky. A little bit tricky getting it to clamp on there. It's got to be right up against that end of the C-clip, like that. That might work. So on this side of the vice grip, the C-clip is up against the jaw. And now I can take this end of the C-clip and hit it down and hopefully get it to come off that side of the shaft there. Okay, another hit try. Now you probably can't see that, but I'm going to move the camera so you can. You see how that C-clip is hanging off the bottom there? So now I should just be able to pry it off of there very easily, because it's barely on. Well, it was on there pretty good still, but there it is. It came off. No harm done. So that's the first thing that comes off as we're keeping track of the order of disassembly. The next part that comes off is this splined, it's a splined thrust washer. You can see the splines in it. And right behind that is this little thrust bearing. It's full of tiny rollers that rides up against the back of it. And the next thing to come off is this thrust washer, which is behind that thrust bearing that rides behind the splined thrust washer. So that thrust bearing is sandwiched between those two thrust washers, with the splined one being the farthest out. The splined one is actually what's held in by that clip, that C-clip. Okay, so now just like I did on the other side, I'll use this specialty wrench. It's a specialty socket designed just for these, to get that first spindle lock nut off, loosen that up. It came right off on the other side. Hopefully it'll do the same thing here. Yep. So that's the first thing that comes off, is that lock nut. And then right after that is this keyed washer. Why do I say it's keyed? Because it's got this little key in it that rides in this slot on the top of the spindle. So when those are squeezed together by that lock nut, nothing's going to turn. So that's there. And then the last thing holding this rotor in is this spindle nut that's actually holding the outside wheel bearing in. And there it is. Just another nut. But this one goes in directly against that wheel bearing.
Look closely at this. There's a pin protruding from one side of the nut. When this is reinstalled, that pin has to be facing out, away from the wheel bearing. Then that keyed locking washer with all the holes in it fits over it, with that pin protruding into one of those holes.
And the next thing we were taking out of there is the wheel bearing, the outside wheel bearing. That's got to be cleaned up and inspected. And now the rotor can come right off. The inside wheel bearing is going to come with it and stay in there. And there's the inside wheel bearing. You can see there. It's got to be knocked out. That wheel bearing seal has to be knocked out, and the bearing will follow it. So I got this socket when I did the hubs on the F-150. I just want to see if it fits here. Yeah, it does. So I need to get a 1/2-inch drive, and I'll be able to loosen that up. Thing's not in the best shape. It's been abused in the past. It looks like someone beat on it because they didn't have the right wrench. So now, half-inch breaker bar. Wow. There we go. But that one was against the outer wheel bearing, which I'll have to clean and repack. Probably original. Made in USA, Timken. So definitely want to try to preserve this. Now let's see how we do on removing this rotor. Smooth as can be. Oh, that seal in the back looks pretty worn. It's really old. I'll have to replace the seal and repack the bearings. This whole thing needs a good cleaning. I'm just looking at the condition of the spindle here. Which isn't bad. I've certainly seen worse. I had one on an F-250 that was so worn, we filled it with weld and turned it down on the lathe and then had to polish it down. I'm going to see if I can take this backing plate off without breaking the screws here. That one came off loose pretty good. That one, I don't know. Hey, wasn't exactly smooth, but it worked loose. There's one more over here. Which is a definite maybe. Got it loose a little bit. Okay. That's two. And three. I highly doubt that these are available as replacement parts, but I think it's still solid enough that I can clean it up and paint it. These are 15 millimeter. I think it's actually moving. Sure is. And this thing is in really bad condition here.
These stamp metal parts are called spindle seats in the 1983 Ford factory manual.
I don't know if that'll be reusable. The bottom part is okay. It's the part that sticks out this way that's very deteriorated.
Almost gone.
I might be stuck using it though. I bet I can't get one.
I found them on eBay from a junkyard in the dry desert state of Utah.
Let's see what happens if I try to pull this shaft out. Oh, it has a bellows on it, farther in there. So there's a bellows and a spline holding that together. I need to release that bellows so I can get this out, because frankly, this U-joint in here is frozen. So I need to pull this shaft out and replace the joint. And it might not be as bad as I was thinking it might be because of that bellows, but I have to inspect underneath before I can decide what to do. Okay, so here's the bellows I was talking about. There's the axle shaft that goes out by the wheel. Here's a yoke for another U-joint in here next to the pumpkin. And I won't be able to tell how flexible this joint is until this is pulled out, so that this can just hang there loose, if it is loose. Otherwise I'm going to have to try to figure out how to replace this U-joint as well. And that's a bummer. So one side of that bellows on the axle had a cable tie on it. You probably saw it in the picture. I cut that cable tie, and it seemed to be pretty loose fitting. The bellows was loose on the shaft. So let's see how this works out. Yep. Okay, great.
If you know these axle U-joints are in good condition, you don't need to disassemble the spindle and pull the axle like this. This video won't show you how I fixed this axle, but my next video will be about replacing these U-joints and seals, servicing the manual locking hub, and putting it all back together again.
Look at this U-joint. Oh shoot. I can't even move it that way. Okay. I guess the steering was a little tight. I'm going to use this blunt end of this used to be cold chisel, I guess. to knock the bearing out, the inner bearing out, and in doing so, I'll be knocking that seal out. I have to hit the bearing and not the race. The outer edge of the bearing. And there it is. Okay, so the bearing is going to go get cleaned and repacked. And the seal, I've got to see if I can get a new one. I sure hope so. So I'm going to start the cleaning process for the parts from the front hub. Down in the barn, I'm going to pour fresh kerosene into here and soak these greasy parts overnight, or maybe longer, and then really clean them out by hand with the brush, with a soft brush this time. So this dropped down. Ooh. All right. So the good news is this U-joint appears to be in good shape. It's very loose and smooth. Smooth as silk. So I don't have to worry about that one, thank goodness. I wish it had a grease fitting on it so I could take care of it. But I guess it's getting enough fallout from all this oil, all these oil drips under here. Okay, that's good luck. I start this cleaning process with some dirty old kerosene. I mean, I want to hit everything, all this loose rust with a wire wheel, but before that I want to make sure that I get as much of the loose stuff off as I can first, and then the kerosene makes it so that I'm not putting up a big plume of dust, because this cleans off a lot of the loose dust, and then also it stays kind of wet. Even after it dries, it's got like a coating of paraffin on it, so it's not as dusty when you wire wheel it. I already hit this joint and the two ball joints with some grease from the grease gun. Okay, I'm going to let that go ahead and dry off, just naturally through dripping off and evaporation, and then I'll hit it with some wire, with a wire wheel on my drill. I wish I thought of putting this pan under here this way before I did the cleaning with the kerosene. That would have saved me some cleanup on the shop floor. Okay, this is straight super clean. Super Clean is biodegradable detergents. When you use it straight, it's concentrated, so when you use it straight, you have to be careful. You need skin, eye, and lung protection. Like right there, I got a whiff of that mist. And you don't want that. You don't want to breathe that stuff in. So now while I'm spraying it, I'm going to be holding my breath and then backing off to breathe. Yeah, that's not working. Okay, so I put a fan over here behind me to keep the air moving. You see it, the mist is blowing away from me. And it's working. I'm not breathing this stuff in anymore. You really don't want to breathe this stuff in. Well, you'll find out the first time you do. It's very strong. Need to clear that air a little bit. You just let it sit there and do its work for 5 or 10 minutes. And then go ahead and start brushing it. Spray some more on fresh and brush it. This is not only going to get off all the loose rusty dust, this is going to get off all the loose dirt and stuff that the detergents were able to pick up, clean up. But it's also going to it's going to remove all that kerosene, all that oil I put on here. I don't want there to be any oil left on here because I plan to paint this, and I want the paint to stick. You can hear that fan going. I'm trying to keep this air clear in here. Trying to get inside this axle housing here a little bit. It is just full of crud. Old grease and oil. And when you're done with that, you just rinse it off with some water. Oh, look at this. Before I do that, look at this. Look how clean that came. That is ready for paint. Okay. Of course, if you're outdoors, you can just hit this with a hose, or if you don't care about water going on your garage floor. It would be good if I could pressure wash this, but I'm not doing that in the garage. That really does need a hose to get rinsed out. So I ran a hose up into the back there and turned it on. This is going to rinse it out better than anything. Did I mention these detergents are biodegradable? Rather than blow it off of there and spraying water all over the place, more water all over the place, I'm going to warm this thing up with a heat gun and it'll dry very quickly. Matter of fact, it'll be dry enough to paint in just a few minutes. Yeah, it's still pretty greasy and oily in there. It's better. I'll shoot some paint in there, and the surfaces that are dry will get protected. And the surfaces that are greasy will be protected by grease. You can always wire wheel this paint off of here too. I couldn't be bothered to tape it up. But this will be easy to take off once it's dry. I'll just hit it with a wire wheel again. This will all be covered with never sees during assembly, this flange surface here. So what I'm doing here is no big deal. Now inside here, just put a little piece of tape on the tip of this zerk fitting. So I'm using a different parts cleaning brush for this. It's a much softer bristle. It's a Calvan 266. And I put new kerosene in here. I always use new kerosene on wheel bearings or anything that you don't want damaged by old gritty kerosene. This will just clean all that old grease out of there. When I rinse it right through there. I can still see a little grease in there. I'll just set this down on a clean shop cloth and move on to the next. Prop it up this way a little bit. We'll make it deeper over here. Next. I don't know if you can tell, but these rollers are rolling through the liquid here. By the way, both of these bearings look really good. There's no lines or marks on them of any kind on these rollers. I will be reusing them. There's that little thrust bearing. Goes around the drive axle. That looks good. What else we got in here? Another lock nut. Jam nut, I should say. These lock together. Thrust washer. Looks good. And here's that keyed locking ring. All those holes are clear. There's no residue on this. That's good. Looks good. And here's that C-clip that holds everything in on that axle, on the end of the drive axle. I'm going to save this pan of fresh kerosene to reuse when I do the clean off the bearings on the other side, on the driver's side. Okay, I got my stiffer parts cleaning brush. I'm going to use that just to clean the heavy stuff off the spindle and the locking hub. Being that this has so much rust, I'm going to have to use the wire wheel. Oh, time to do this side. That's about the best I can get it in there. I'm going to have to hit it with that Rust-Oleum rust reformer paint and stops rust paint, and I guess that's the best I can do on that. So I forgot to insert earplugs. Earplugs work best with this. Ear muffs and the hood here really don't get along. Well, it's raining out here now. As soon as this gets dried up, I'll be able to paint it with that Rust-Oleum rust reformer. See if I can break this brake line loose up here. Yeah, it's loose. Amazing. It's tough because it's behind here. Tough to get at. Fortunately, it came loose right off the bat, though. Loose and dried up. Okay, it's out. This has one of those horseshoe clips on it to hold this in. It's on the back. It'll be kind of difficult to hit, but it wants to go downward to be removed. It is movable. Just don't know how I'm going to get it yet. So yeah, it's behind here, but I think I can get a hold of it right there. See if this will work. That slipped it.
I couldn't see the clip at all. I assumed it was the same as the U-shaped clip I'd removed from the rear brake hose when I removed that. But it's different. This one actually locks itself in, so I can't slip it off.
Pretty sure, well, maybe I'm wrong. It looks like it wants to slide. I thought it wanted to slide down, but it looks like it needs to slide up. This might turn into a destructive removal here.
All my efforts were futile until I decided it was time to destroy that clip.
Well, there's the brake line. Get that out of the way. Doesn't look bad from here.
I drove the tapered end of a small pry bar into the loop in the clip that was created when it was formed by bending back on itself. It's time to destroy this thing.
Finally, I knew I was going to have to destroy it to remove it. And this is why, and I couldn't see it, but it's folded over. And this U shape here is what locks under the slot in the hose. And then this part here comes down over the top of it and locks it in. But there's no way to see that when it's behind there, so now I have to get a new one. Put never sees behind it on the tube, and in front of it on the tube. This nut won't slide back too far because this tube has this winding on it. And then, of course, all over the threads. Now, this wasn't stuck in there. It wasn't rusted in there. And the tube end here looks really good. I can't see how the rest of that tube looks. I think what I might do is soak it down with some WD-40 or something. So this goes back here. This only fits one way. It's got a flat on the top. So it only goes in one way, like so. And then this flare nut screws into the back of it. That's it, it's tight. And as I said, I need to get another clip to put behind here to clip that in. That needs to be held securely. Solid.
A final cleaning with brake cleaner before painting the dust shield. New rotors come with a sticky anti-rust coating that needs to be cleaned off before painting. After drying the dust shield in the warm sun and breeze, it's time to spray Rust-Oleum rust reformer.
Well, that looks like it came out pretty nice. So after 24 hours you can top coat it with Rust-Oleum Stops Rust paint. So that's what I'm going to do. That's the Rust-Oleum rust reformer. So these new calipers are actually, they're rebuilt. It's actually a Ford casting. These new calipers they're coated with an anti-rust, kind of greasy and sticky.
It was commonly known as Cosmoline back in the day.
So I'm going to paint these calipers, so I want to get that stuff off of here so the paint sticks. Whoop. A little bit too much on me on that. Alright. Leave this out in the sun and let it dry. I'm going to mask this piston and the new seal off just so they don't get painted. Using a little X-Acto knife to press the tape in there and trim the excess tape off. This blade isn't exactly sharp anymore. Doesn't stick to that rubber very well. But I think it's going to keep the paint off about 98% of it, so that's pretty good. Might as well do the second one while I'm at it. Okay, well, good enough. That's going to keep most of the paint off it.
I removed the brake bleeders and banjo bolt and washers so their holes could be masked off.
Wow, they have that really super tight. No need for that. This is a sealing surface for those little copper washers that seal the banjo fitting on. So I'm going to keep the paint off of here best I can. And that's the hole for the brake bleeder. I'll just kind of block that off with some tape in there. So this is Rust-Oleum Caliper paint, high performance up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's gloss red. Dries to the touch in 20 minutes, to handle in 1 hour. Wait 7 days for paint to fully cure. Apply a second coat within 1 hour or after 24 hours. So if I wait an hour, I can throw another coat on it. I think that's what I'll do. And then after 2 hours, after the second coat has set up, I can flip it over and repeat the process on the bottom or the top, depending on your perspective.
The rotor will need masking since I want to paint certain exposed parts of it.
I need to replace this blade or replace the knife altogether. Okay, it's all ready to paint the center and the back here. The wind. The wind is just taking it. This looks wet, but it's dry to the touch. It's just that shiny.
That small exposed metal area got painted red. I stuffed grease into the inboard U-joint spline next to the differential housing. So I'm wiping it off my finger onto the drive axle spline that inserts into it. That adds up to plenty of grease for those splines. It was hot in the garage that day. There was no way I'd be able to insert the axle end into the rubber boot on the inboard U-joint yoke and align the splines without some help. Fortunately, my helper was home.
So I'm trying to put this axle in. If you remember, it has that spline on the end. I need to line it up underneath, so I've got to go underneath. And then I need you to take this and hold it and push it in when I say.
Okay.
And this, it's important, the alignment is very important. So this needs to be perfectly horizontal here.
Okay.
Across this joint. That should be horizontal.
All right.
And then this should be vertical.
All right.
All right. But first we need to get it lined up. It's got to be pushed through a rubber boot and lined up with the other, with the splines on the other U-joint in there. So it might take a little effort here, but we'll see. Tight fitting boot it has to go into. Okay, take a hold of it, guide it straight in. Now let me see. That darn light is in my eyes. Oh, I'm trying to get it to just start it in the boot. All right, hold it. These are not helping. Okay, push a little. Push.
I am.
Okay, hold it. Maintain. Everything perfectly horizontal.
It's, I mean, yeah. As you touch it, it moves.
Yeah, I know, but
But yes.
right now it is.
Yes, right now.
Okay, push. 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 That's it. It's in.
Okay.
Now, is it perfect? Is it still? Let's see. Right here is perfect for me. Is it still perfect?
I can't tell. Looking at this,
The splines aren't keyed.
doesn't look like it.
It doesn't look like it.
There.
No. Right there.
It's important to make sure the U-joint yokes on both ends are perfectly aligned with each
Hold
other.
this centered in the hole
Yeah.
and straight, like straight axle.
Yes.
It looks like it's probably pretty good.
Okay.
I think. I don't see how we could do much better, really. Let me have a look. Yeah, I'd say that's as good as it can get.
Okay.
All right, that's all set. Thank you.
You need me for? Okay, good.
Yep, that's all I need.
A little grease on the back of your head.
Oh, can you grab that? Yeah, just wipe it off. This is what the Ford manual, the Ford Ranger repair manual calls a spindle seat. It's just a stamped sheet metal. The spindle sits in here and it's a dust shield around the inside there. But as you can see, this thing is in terrible condition. There's not much left of it. This is the one from the passenger side, and the one from the driver's side is a lot worse than this. And here's the ones I got from eBay. Completely solid. There was a little light rust on the surface, and I cleaned them off a bit with a Scotch-Brite pad and sprayed some Rust-Oleum. Can't ask for any better than that.
I'll coat the spindle mounting surface with Never Seez. As well as all the spindle studs. I applied plenty of grease to the inner axle stub seal. Then the axle stub bearing surface. And the splines and shaft for good measure. Never Seez here too.
I had already packed this bearing in here. I'm just going to put a bunch of grease in there, a bunch more, and here. This slot goes up.
There's a need to be careful with this, since there's a small seal behind that inner axle bearing I just greased. The inner yoke seal offers some resistance as it's pushed into the back of the spindle. The bearing nut threads get a good coating of grease. This ended up being the wrong size socket. These aren't 5/8 inch, they're 15 millimeter. Evenly tighten the 5 nuts in a star pattern.
That's what's
Torque the spindle nuts in a star pattern. I did 30 foot-pounds for the first step.
All right, that's 30. The spec on these is 35 to 45. I'll take them up to 43. Three clicks. Make sure you do 3 clicks. At least 2. I got movement out of that second one. Okay, that's all of them, right? Huh, that one moved quite a bit. I think maybe I missed it last time. And that one again. Okay, by the way, this is a 15mm socket for those.
Filling the void between the wheel bearings with grease. There isn't a lot of space in there on these rotors. Get all the grease off the sealing surfaces. Time to install my pre-greased bearings.
You got to try to drive it in as straight as you can, but if you don't have the proper driver, use a soft face hammer and just work it in. Try to work it in as evenly as possible all the way around. Make sure it's fully seated. And that's the best you can do. Then put some grease on the lip here. These are called lip seals. The lip needs a little lubrication. Maybe more than a little. I'm going to fill up the space between the lip seal and the bearing here. That'll be good. Okay, that's a little too tight. I got it snug down there. It's a little too tight. Just making sure. Over tighten it a little bit. Go ahead and rotate it around, make sure everything's seated in place where it needs to be. And then back it off a touch. It shouldn't really be tight. still seems a bit tight. No, it doesn't. Can't. A little loud, I'd say. Should be quieter than that. Definitely snug. Well, there's a little bit of backlash in that, so I loosened it up too much. You shouldn't be able to feel it move if you load it back and forth this way. Okay, that's good. All right. Now that little hole, that little pin that's in this nut isn't lined up with one of these holes. Let me try flipping it over. Oh, there it is. Now it's lined up. That's probably tight enough. Okay, thrust washer. Thrust bearing. Splined thrust washer. I'm prying on that U-joint to try to compress the seal that's in there, that new seal, to give me enough space here to get this locking C-clip in there. Something a little stiffer. I'll try this one.
The axle stub needs to stick out of the spindle far enough so the C-clip groove is exposed enough to get the clip into it. I'm prying the back of the axle stub outward to squeeze that new rubber seal and move the axle outward. I got the C-clip started in its groove. Now it needs a little persuasion to wrap around the shaft. I have to hit it hard enough to get it to snap into the groove and seat properly, while being careful not to hit the thrust washer. It went pretty good.
It's in there. That's just a spring there to keep the shoe from rattling around too much. Goes in behind here into the slots in the caliper bracket. That is part of the casting of the knuckle. So I'll have to put the camera back there and try to get a picture of it for you. So that's what it looks like back there. That spring is down here. You can probably see it. I can't see what the camera sees at the moment. Well, that's how that disc brake pad goes in there. So the piston goes toward the back, and the outer disc brake pad goes like this. You see there's a raised section here and here. There's a couple tabs sticking out of the back of the shoe, and that's a spring that holds everything in place. Well, those tabs, as this goes in, those tabs lock into these grooves, and this just goes in like this, and you can see where that tab is locked in there and there, and the springs, that spring just holds everything in place. That seems well lined up. I just have to get this to go in there. Oh, not so bad. Now there's a metal clip that goes back here and screws into the back of the caliper here, in the back of the piston housing. That holds this tube against the back of the caliper here. So I've got to get that and put that in before I tighten the banjo bolt. So this thing I didn't wire brush or paint or anything. I was hoping I could find a new one. It's still solid and in good condition. So I'm just going to put it on there as is. If I can get the bolt holder line up here. And then there's this little self-tapping bolt that goes in there. And as a matter of fact, the hole up here doesn't have threads in it. It's got threads down here in a hole, but not up here. So this was at one time on the other side of a different vehicle. But now I've got to tap this into that. Seems to be going in rather smoothly, that's good. Okay, that's tight as can be. That's 9/16. All set. This is ready to be bled. In order to know if this is in the proper orientation or the right side, the correct side of the vehicle, the bleeder should be the highest point. Here's the piston, here's the bleeder. If there's any air coming through the line, it'll rise up toward the bleeder, and then you can bleed the air out. I'm not going to be bleeding this right now because I still have to finish the other side. I'm only not even halfway done with the other side. And then I'm going to replace the master cylinder as well. So when I replace the master cylinder, I'll bleed the whole system out, and I'll make a video out of that. It's going to be master cylinder replacement and bleeding out the entire brake system. Yep, I put never sees on these little screws as well. They're basically the same size self-tapping bolt as the one on the bracket back there. Gonna have to run these nuts in and out on the lugs here. I'm thinking I might have made a mistake by not painting this surface as long as I was painting that. So I'm going to go ahead and coat it with never sees. I'm just going to put a couple of lug nuts on it just to hold it so it doesn't fall off. That's how these hubs are held in, just by having a wheel tightened over them. So I can definitely feel that pulling in and squeezing on that O-ring. So I think this will create a good seal. Okay, that's set on free. And now lock. You can hear it click in. And now I'm turning that axle. Free. Okay.
My next 4x4 Diesel Ranger video will be about replacing the brake master cylinder and bleeding the brakes. Following that, I'll have a video dedicated to servicing the front drive axles and manual locking hubs. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to like and subscribe.